this presentation has been researched and developed by a group of fine individuals, Luther College students who are in the nursing department and also represent the social work department. And I'm going to have them come up and tell us their names and kind of what their role was in this process of developing tonight's presentation. So come on up.
Second blurry. Okay. My name is Katie Bellamy. I'm a senior nursing major, and for this project, I was in charge of researching marijuana statistics in our surrounding counties, Winneshiek, Almaquee, Delaware, and Howard, as well as the state of Iowa as a whole.
My name is Emma Sires. I'm also a senior nursing major, and my role for this project was researching the different types of marijuana CBD products, and then the different THC concentrations, which you'll all kind of learn about later.
My name is Sydney Schreier. I'm also a senior nursing student. My role for this presentation was to look up resources, local, in person, as well as online, that can be accessed from anywhere in order to help with addiction related to marijuana.
My name is Katie Dunn. I'm also a senior nursing major, and my role was looking up the legalization in Iowa and other states, and I'm also the IT girl for tonight.
I'm Ethan. I'm a senior nursing major, and I did a lot of the research behind the therapeutic uses and clinical uses of marijuana, as well as the physical side effects.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Moss, and I am a senior social work major. I'm doing my practicum at Helping Services, so tonight I represent Helping Services Youth Mentoring, and I have helped with putting together the training manuals and the pre-material stuff I've helped with, and also I'm helping with technology tonight.
And I'm ever so thankful for each of these people because they really have taken this on as a team effort, and we're really pleased that we've got some good information for you tonight. I will say we don't know everything that there is to know about marijuana because it's ever changing, and that's something that's really important, is that you know, laws are changing, attitudes are changing, beliefs are changing, and sometime tonight you might go, aha, I learned something new, and your attitude may change a little bit. So a little bit about me. I'm Kathy Schwarzoff. I'm a certified prevention specialist at Helping Services. I've been with the agency for 29 years, and I've been a certified prevention specialist for 25 of those years and been a mentoring coordinator for 23. And so we get to tell you a lot of good stuff tonight. So we're going to just jump right into where we're headed. We really want to look at learning about the different types of marijuana. As one of the students said, we're going to look at policies in the state and kind of how that all plays out. We're also going to understand the statistics related to use, whether that's youth or adults, both, and then to explore the physical effects of use, and then look at local and national resources that are available to us all. So that's where we're headed. Some of you may be going, I don't get the connection. Why is Helping Services talking about this? Why is Youth Mentoring talking about this? And if you're at all familiar with Helping Services, you wouldn't really ask that first question, because we've had substance abuse prevention at the agency since the beginning. And that is key to the services that we offer, is helping individuals, communities, families to make healthy decisions related to their well-being. And so it really fits our mission. With youth mentoring, it's kind of more the same, from the sense that we do want the kids that are involved in our program between the ages of 6 and 16 having a positive adult role model in their life. And we have 8 goals that we work on. And one of those goals is specifically saying that we want the youth to make good choices related to substance use and any kind of drugs. And our mentors are actually charged with the idea of at least once a year talking to their mentee about the effects of drugs and how it affects their future. And then lastly, we have a grant with the Iowa Department of Public Health that helps support all of those matches that we just talked about. And one of the things in order to get all that funding for support is they ask us to do trainings, 8 of them per year, that are on substance abuse prevention, related issues, or problem gambling, again, to influence those youth, to also have people who are in the community that are an influence on the youth, parents that are an influence on the youth, and that. So that's how the connection has come about with youth mentoring specific. Now we're going to jump right into the meat of things here. And we as a group talked about it's important to kind of give people an overview of things. And so first of all, it's important to know that the cannabis sativa plant is where both marijuana and hemp come from. And this chart has a really great way of helping us understand that they're very different. With hemp, the THC, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a minute, but it's the psychoactive part of things, it's less than 3% of THC. And then the CBD, that's the healing power or the healing component of anything that comes from a cannabis sativa plant. And that is different than marijuana. With marijuana, the THC levels are over 3%, and depending on what the product is, they can be much higher and get into very dangerous levels. And then the CBD, or the healing component, is different with that one. So we mentioned the THC, and there's this huge long word, and I have to tell you, I have a hard time saying long words, so I'm going to do my best. Tetrahydrocannabinol. Is that right? No? Okay, yay, there's cheers in the room. Yay. So that's the psychoactive component of marijuana. And for those of you who got information from us, our bonus materials that we sent out, there was a video that really had a good description of how your receptors in your brain combine with the THC, and that's where it gets to be the altering type of things. And hopefully for those of you that didn't see that, you can request that and we can make sure that you see that, because it was a quick video but really explained it really well. And the THC also affects the mood, pain, nausea, those kinds of things. Can only be sourced from marijuana, and it's often a component of cannabis products, including marijuana, hemp, and CBD. And as we said earlier, has varying levels depending on the product. So just going to look at my notes here. Yeah, and THC is that chemical part of things that creates the high. And one thing I'm going to say too is it's interesting with marijuana that people are botanists, people are scientists, people are medical people in all fields, kind of understanding how this is all evolving. So they have said tetrahydrocannabinol, that word more than I have. And then hemp, just as we said earlier, that's got the lower THC in it, contains less than 3%, and it is a natural product that's used in many things, many consumables, it's wearable or can be, and everything in between. So, and that gives some examples here on the slide of things that are hemp products. And before we go on to the next slide, I really want to emphasize that the marijuana of today is not the marijuana that was of 30 plus years ago. It's very different. So we're going to take a look at that. And you can see from this chart on the very bottom those in 1960, 1980, those areas, the potency of the marijuana was around that hemp level of less than 3%. And as things evolved, marijuana was smokable, that's more potent. The edibles are even more potent than smokable marijuana. And then wax shatter is a very concentrated form of marijuana use, or has those components in it. And it's almost, look at that, almost 100%, which is really, really dangerous. So we really want to emphasize that it's very different than it used to be years ago.
Oh, we do have a question.
Oh yeah, we'll go back there.
They were just asking, what is your reference for this slide?
For this slide, it's tall cop. And I don't know if everybody can see that on the bottom, that it's tall cop says stop.com. And tall cop is a speaker that he's actually a police officer that talks about the impact of drugs on youth and adults. Thanks for asking that. I don't know, sometimes when things are at the bottom of the slide, you can't always see it.
I put it in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about, Iowa has 5 dispensaries where people can go and get products, and it's they definitely have to have qualifying factors to get those. And there's also allowable forms of, and here's another, medical cannabidiol products. It's an important term. And so those allowable forms are that there's oral ways to use those, or to have those products be, with the listing there, topical forms, nebulized, which is an inhaled type of thing, suppositories, and vaporization. And you can see to the left on the slide that it shows you, these are the 5 Iowa dispensaries that the state has said these are our Iowa groups. If you Google dispensaries, you're going to see a whole lot more. And places that call themselves the dispensary, they're not the official ones that are that the state recognizes as being the dispensaries. And looking at legalization, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but looking at this map, we want to just see how the differences here of the green sections are called medical legalization, and the gold is recreational, and then medical as well, and then the gray, there's no legislation that's currently been done. And one of the things that we really want to emphasize is medical marijuana is kind of a confusing term. It's really that that term that we had in the last slide that was the medical cannabinol one is really what it's about. That that the CBD is extracted from the marijuana plant, and that's what's used to help with those products, to give that healing component. And it's very difficult. Remember how we talked about all those different people having an impact on this? The scientists have to extract, the chemists have to extract that THC, or that CBD, I should say, and it's very difficult to just extract that CBD. Lots of times THC comes with it. And so that's something to keep in mind. So moving on, a little bit about what's going on in the nation. There is, marijuana is the most frequently used illegal drug in the US. Our map just showed us 18, and at first I didn't believe it. I had to go back and look. It really is 18, with the District of Columbia being part of that as well. And then there's 36 states who have legalized marijuana. Lots of folks have used at least once in 2019. And then there's some information there about how the industry with marijuana selling different products, that by 2026, it'll be a $50 billion business. And somebody that I was talking to yesterday was talking about how they can't believe the packaging that's used in some of the illegal, in our state, illegal CBD products, like there's cookies and gummies and things like that. And they look like they're candy, or they look like they're a cookie. And it really appeals to young people. It also appeals, they have done their marketing because they know that we like red, and they want you to buy their product. But here in Iowa, we can't buy those products legally, but in other states you can. So as we said earlier, tonight's about let's talk about marijuana. We are going to have, I think it's Katie, come up and lead us into that.
Alrighty, so if you're on Zoom, our tech folks here are going to work on breaking you out into break rooms for about 5 minutes to discuss this first question. And if you're here in person, we'll kind of break you out as well. The question is, many of today's attendees are concerned about youth. What are things you feel are important to share with youth to help them understand the risks involved in marijuana use? So we'll take some time now to discuss that question. Thank you.
So we're going to come back together as a group. If anybody wants to share out either online or in person, kind of what you talked about in your group.
One thing that we talked about was like it's really important for people, if they're being exposed to it for the first time, to understand like the dosages and like what is a lot and what is a little, because it's really easy for people that have never been around it before to like make pretty serious mistakes and mess up. So that's something that I think is hard to figure out, but it's really important. Like,
Yeah.
Emma,
if you could repeat. Yeah, so everybody online, someone in here just mentioned that it's really important for people to be able to understand what dosages and concentrations what they're using is, because if you're kind of in a situation where you're not sure what you're taking or how much you're used to, that sort of thing, that can be dangerous for youth especially. Great point.
Our group had talked about the education is more important than just kind of saying no, because that makes you want to, especially youth, want to experiment or do it more. If it's just said, no, don't do it. But if you're having some education and talking about, you know, needing to be clear-headed, because even at 14, you can drive in Iowa. So, and can be making some big decisions when you're on the road and things. And so just having that clear mind.
We also had, we also had two people in the chat. Anastasia said, also you should know where marijuana is from because it's different in different parts of the world. And Maddie said, giving them access to the information on how it could affect you genetically and depending on what other medications the youth is on.
Yeah. Yeah, so just kind of being aware, again, of education, of, you know, the type that you're using, where it came from, because concentrations and, you know, varieties can differ the same way a normal plant would. And then also kind of, if you're on other medications, knowing what those interactions are and maybe consulting with your doctor, if you're going to be using regularly, those sorts of things were also brought up in the chat. Thank you.
Great discussion. I'm so happy that everybody was comfortable that shared. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize too was this question was about youth, and some of our examples were perhaps not what a youth would be worrying about, dosage and things like that. So just keep that in mind, but knowing too that adults, we need to share our values. We need to share what's important to our youth and do that in a non-judgmental way. because we've all had lectures from our parents that we did not enjoy, and we don't want to come off that way. So when we're that role model for a youth, we want to be their non-judgmental listening ear, have conversations about things, not just about drugs, but about lots of life experiences. So thank you for your participation. That was awesome. So now we're going to, if the PowerPoint cooperates. Why is it not changing? We are going to look at some of the statistics, and let's see. There we go. Yay. See, Katie just touches things and they change. This first information is from what's called the Iowa Youth Survey, and it's done in our state with 6th graders, 8th graders, and 11th graders every 2 years. In 2019, I believe it wasn't done. That was supposed to be the year to do it. And no, 2020, excuse me, it was supposed to be done. And the schools were dealing with COVID, and are we online? Are we in-person students? And they felt like it was too much of a burden to put that on the teachers and support staff to do that. So it was done this fall in Iowa schools, and information will be available in the summertime sometime. So, and the questions that are asked in the Iowa Youth Survey aren't just about drugs. There's things about beliefs and your neighborhood and your community and behaviors and lots of topics. But we pulled the information that was pertinent to marijuana. So this particular question asks, have you ever used marijuana? And again, just a reminder, the counties that youth mentoring serves are Alameda, Delaware, Howard, and Winneshiek. So that's where we pull the statistics from. And I always like looking at the state, what the state overall average is as well, and compare that with the other counties. And you can see here that the state level of youth that have ever used marijuana is 9%. And Howard is actually more than that. And then Alameda, which is the Al there, is 6, and Delaware is 7, and Winneshiek is 1. And so that just gives you an idea that marijuana has definitely been used by our youth. And again, this is all 3 of those grades together. And then this question asks, in the past 30 days, have you used? So a little bit different way of looking at it. And again, looking at that state average, I found sometimes I couldn't see what that number was for the state, but it's 4% said that they have used in the past 30 days. And again, Howard County is quite high. Alameda is close to the state average, and Delaware and Winneshiek are tied there with 1% of youth saying that they've used in the past 30 days. Then another statistic we want to look at is that perception of harm. And this question asks about how much do you risk yourself using more than once a week? And they ask the students to reflect on this. Is it a great risk? Is it a moderate risk? Is it a slight risk, or no risk at all? And you can see that the majority of youth said that it is a great risk. I can honestly tell you from personal experience that I know the moderate, slight, and no numbers have gone up drastically in the last few years. This particular question, we ask our 6th graders and above that are involved in mentoring about it, and it has shifted so much because it's legal in states around us. Then when we say that it's medical marijuana, that confusing term, they think that a doctor is prescribing it, which isn't really the case. And so it's just very confusing to youth. They think that it's legal and it's prescribed by a doctor. Oh, those are 2 entities that I should trust. And that's where we, as those positive adult role models, can talk to the kids and make sure that they understand the potency and the harm that can cause. Lastly, we're going to look at some adult statistics and see how that looks. On the left-hand part of the screen, it looks at 2016 information and some information that was happening just here in 2020. And from 2016 to 2020, marijuana remained the second drug of choice for Iowans, where alcohol went down 8% and meth shot up 8%. And about 9% of marijuana users become hooked. 9%, that marijuana, or that 9% increases to 1 in 6 among users who start in adolescence. And that 25 to 50% among those who use daily. So the younger they start, the greater risk, and those who use more often, the greater risk. And the table here is very interesting because it looks at, in the treatment centers, what people are being admitted for with treatment. And one thing I will tell you, having talked with lots of treatment counselors about what's available in our area, they have to choose one treatment plan and one drug of choice.
We do have a question.
Okay.
They asked hooked on what?
Hooked on marijuana itself. Yep, great question. Okay, see if I can remember, go back where I'm at. Talking with treatment counselors with this chart, they have to pick one drug that they're going to say this person is in treatment for that. And many times people have more than one drug that they're being worked on with, that they're struggling with and being challenged by. So lots of good information on that. And then we're going to look at those qualifying conditions in the state of Iowa. And so cancer is one of those, and particularly if the illness or the treatment produces severe or chronic pain, nausea, severe vomiting, and severe wasting. You can see here that seizures, Crohn's disease, chronic pain, and that's a recent change. There used to be different wording to that. Chronic pain is one of the qualifying conditions. Multiple sclerosis, AIDS or HIV, ALS, Parkinson's disease, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is another newer one. Terminal illness with some definite kind of perimeters to that. And then 2, ulcerative colitis. Remember, I can't say those long words. Yeah. And then autism, and autism kind of has 2 categories. It can be for pediatric autism and then also adult autism. And there's self-harm in that as being a qualifying condition, and also aggressive behaviors related to that. And then that last one that's got lots of bigger words in it too.
We also have a question. What is the definition of qualifying conditions?
What is the definition of qualifying conditions? It's when someone asks if they want to get help for any kind of concern that they have here, that they would be allowed to apply for a card so that they could be helped with the medical marijuana type of thing. Anything else on that? Students who did research, we're good? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
You said it's not, medical marijuana is not prescribed by a doctor.
Just a second, I can't hear you so well.
You said earlier medical marijuana is not prescribed by a doctor, so how do people get it?
The question is medical marijuana isn't prescribed by a doctor, is what I said. And really it's not a prescription, that the doctor consults with the person and, you know, they talk about it. And then the pharmacy, once they get their card and they apply for it, which takes some time, then the pharmacy talks to them about dosage. And that's the thing that's interesting with a prescription, you get a dose. You're told, you know, when you're medically getting help for something, you're told take 2 tablets 4 times a day. With this, you're not. The pharmacy can give you some recommendations, but again, they can't tell you. And so that's why it's just really a big question mark of what's safe. Great question. Okay. And then we want to look at, that leads us right into what we were going to talk about, is what are the effects of marijuana use? And acute effects are if just using it one time or one-time use and not using it over a longer period of time. So those can be things that are listed here with the euphoria, that high feeling, lethargic, very lack of energy, alterations in perception, not quite understanding, you know, what all decision there is related to driving and what all decisions are there related to relationships. Do I just say something inappropriate because I'm affected by the drug? Dry mouth, fast heart rate, high blood pressure. And so those are the things that are affected. Other things that can happen too is disorientation, hallucinations, paranoia, acute functional psychosis. And so those can also happen. And it's certainly, like we said earlier, there's impaired judgment, your motor ability is changed, your attention, your short-term memory can just be not good at all. And certainly some memory things and your higher brain function can also be affected. So again, this is some of the stuff that we can tell those youth that it's really not worth it to just have that high. And then long-term effects are someone that use on a continual basis, and it varies with the person. And that's true even with acute, that it varies a little bit with the particular person. There certainly can be withdrawal. There can be anxiety, irritability, anger, not being able to sleep, weight loss, depression, lots of things that happen. And again, high risk for psychiatric disorders, that paranoia and those kinds of things. Also things that are related to COPD, heart attack, high blood pressure, insulin resistance, change in the menstrual cycle, your sperm count can be changed, and your libido can also be changed. So pretty big pieces of your life can definitely be affected by long-term use. So we are going to have another question.
So we just blew through a lot of material there. We covered all the physical effects and a lot of statistics. So we're just going to take a few minutes here. We're going to talk about questions and thoughts and concerns we have in our breakout rooms and groups that we already did.
All right, for those of you rejoining on Zoom and in person here, we're going to wrap up the conversations. If anyone wants to share here, you guys can raise your hands, or online, like we said before, you can unmute or respond in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. So if anyone has anything they'd like to bring up for discussion, larger group, go ahead. The question here was how it affects higher brain function and what the higher brain function, what that means.
So I don't know the exact definition of higher brain function off the top of my head, but I know it has more to do with your reasoning and thought processes. So that can be like impaired, slowed down, or just kind of change the way you think about some things. And that's more associated with chronic use. So you'd have to be using a lot of marijuana for anything like that to happen. So.
Any other questions here online? Okay.
So Maddie said, really interested in hearing how people access their medical marijuana if there isn't dosage. Also, if there's any regulation on how often they can use their medical marijuana card throughout time.
So the question was how people access medical marijuana and how often they can get like refills on that type of prescription, and then a little bit more on how that dosages work, since there isn't like a specific designated dosage for that prescription. Okay.
I really encourage you to look at the Iowa Department of Public Health has a great website that has a frequently asked questions section related to medical marijuana. And go on that and it will give you as much information as what we could explain, and it's explained really well. And we can get you that website. I will send that out when I send out the slides and the video itself as well. So I encourage you to go there.
All right, are there any other questions online or here?
Our group talked a lot about the marketing and how it's geared towards youth.
So the question was, for those online, what the impact of medical marijuana on the conditions that we had previously talked about is or are. So I think, Emma, did you have that information?
It's mostly just like
Do you want to come up here?
So it's mostly related to symptom relief. So depending on the condition, but nausea and vomiting are a big one, and then pain also. So it's kind of like an alternative to prescription use for those conditions.
It doesn't directly treat any of that stuff. It doesn't fix the problem. It helps with the symptoms.
It's more, yeah, temporary relief.
So yeah, so just it's relief of symptoms rather than treatment for the condition itself. More just like comfort care.
So we talked about marketing and how it is geared towards youth, and that marijuana is becoming more legal down to the risk.
Okay, so the comment online was that with marketing being targeted towards youth today for marijuana, did you say it lowers the risk?
Yes.
Does it?
Or it's the perception that it lowers the risk.
Yes. So the marketing is targeting youth, and their marketing tactics are trying to decrease the risk perception to youth today. All right, now we'll move on to our next section, which is the resources.
Okay, again, thanks for all your great questions and comments. I hope you had a good visit with people in your group. Doesn't like to come off that side when it does that. There we go. Okay, so local resources that are available for treatment specifically, but also you could get information about how can I help and support loved one. Northeast Iowa Behavioral Health has a location here in Decorah. They also have locations in West Union, Spring Grove, Owine, Waukon, Elkader, Cresco. Those are the ones that are Northeast Iowa-ish, with Spring Grove obviously being in Minnesota. And they offer counseling and do intakes and help with individuals and groups as well. And then the kind of counterpart to Northeast Iowa Behavioral Health down in Delaware County is SASE, and they have a Manchester office and a Dubuque office, and they actually offer a course on risk awareness and reduction called Marijuana 420. They have helpful links and information for children, adolescents, adults, and resources. Have a frequently asked questions section on their website for addiction, and their website is on the bottom of the slide as well. And then Your Life Iowa is a resource that can be accessed by website. You can call the number that's here on the screen. You can actually chat if that's your preference. And there's information not just about marijuana, but there's information about suicide, problem gambling, other drugs, alcohol specifically as well. And if you're just struggling with life, you can call Your Life Iowa or contact them, and they'll give you some help, whether that's a non-judgmental person talking to you about what's happening, or refer you to someone who can help you even more, and that's their specialty. So Your Life Iowa has lots of good information. For those who are in the audience here in person, there's a brochure in your information. You have a chip clip. You guys are so excited that you get that, and a pen. And so for those of you who want a chip clip, you can let us know. We might have to come by and pick it up. But, and then some kind of more broader things. Marijuana Anonymous is something that you can access. They have, they're an addiction group that uses the 12-step process related to recovery. They have, I offer in-person and online meetings. They're free and accessible for Zoom. And from what I can tell, the information on Marijuana Anonymous is just for adults. So that's a resource that folks can access. And so that concludes our resource section. There are more resources that are available. Specifically, as I said, the Iowa Department of Public Health has a great website with lots of frequently asked questions. We have some trainings coming up May 17th and 18th. Sam Jennerjohn, who is the mentoring coordinator for Delaware County, is doing on the 18th, talking about vaping. I'm doing the same presentation the day before, but we're offering it at different times to help people that if your lunch hour works for you, grab your lunch and sit down with us. If after work works for you, then hop on the next day. And those will be virtual. So we're looking forward to that. And there's lots of questions related to vaping as well. And in June, we're going to be doing some opportunities for training on peer pressure. And one of the things I want to just bring out is not only are we going to talk about peer pressure for youth, but we're also going to talk about as we as adults struggle with peer pressure as well. And what can we do to help ourselves be happier and healthier? So this is the point that we just want to share our contact information. There's my information. Angela Cuny has been our professor for this class and has helped support the students and myself, and her contact information is there. So if you have something that you specifically want to ask the students or give a huge shout out to them to say you were awesome, please email her and let her know and she will pass that on. We also want to encourage you to go to that evaluation link and tell us what you thought about the training, what you got out of it, what you enjoyed. And we really are glad that you joined us tonight. And it looks like our time is up, so we may not have questions, but have time for questions. But we certainly appreciate you all coming tonight and having discussions and asking questions as we went along. And let's keep up the discussion of talking about marijuana. And thank you so much.